We know him as H. Ross Perot, but that's not how his daddy pronounced the name.
Perot, corn row, cotton row, Perot, just so you get your pronunciation right.
The Naval Academy would later rebrand the family name for Ross Jr. to the proper French pronunciation of Perot. But that would never change the core of the man. Born a son of a cotton broker in the East Texas town of Texarkana.
We had a bad season one year, and I walked into the kitchen in November and my mother was crying. I said, "Mother, what's the matter?" She said, "Your dad just sold his horse." I said, "What?" He says, "Yes, your dad just sold his horse." I said, "Why did he do that?" He says, "So that we could buy you and Betty Christmas presents." Tells you all you need to know about them, doesn't it?
And it also tells you how the mold was set for Perot's character.
This is back in the 30s and 40s. From the time I was a little boy, he taught me that all people are created equal. It was really interesting to see how people took care of one another, cared for one another, and back through that difficult time in the Depression. This is my all-time favorite Norman Rockwell. I wish it hung everywhere in our country to remind everybody that the history of our country is each generation working and sacrificing to pass on a stronger country to our children.
Important to Perot because that's exactly what his dad did.
He spent his whole life was dedicated to giving us the life he never had.
And Ross started learning that lesson at a very early age.
I started to work at 6. I sold a lot of Christmas cards, but Christmas was over. Then I sold a lot of garden seeds, but then the spring was over. I sold Saturday Evening Post next. That was year-round. And that was at Harvard Business School. You just don't, it's hard to get anywhere else. I think I learned a lot from those experiences that I couldn't have learned at any elite business school.
But that tireless work ethic and motivation eventually got him into an elite school, the U.S. Naval Academy. And the values of honesty, decency, and hard work that he learned from his father earned him the respect of his fellow cadets, who elected him class president, chairman of the honor committee, and battalion commander. And what does this letter say?
Never retreat, never surrender, victory or death.
That's one of Perot's favorite battle cries from William Travis at the Alamo, and some would say his philosophy of business. After topping all sales records at IBM in 1962, Perot borrowed this $1,000 check from his wife Margot's savings account to fund a startup company he called Electronic Data Systems. EDS went on to revolutionize the way that business data is collected, managed, stored, and used, and it grew to employ 70,000 people. In 1984, Perot sold the company to General Motors for $2.5 billion.
I'm not going to retire. I'll never retire.
Just 4 years after selling EDS, he began building Perot Systems. Now headquartered in Plano, Perot employs 16,000 employees that generate over $1.5 billion a year in revenue, and growing.
Well, the whole story there, though, is about talented people. No, we had wonderful, talented people that did Mission Impossible and made it all happen.
Mission Impossible is a Perot trademark. The year, 1979.
When my men were captured in Tehran, and my mother was dying of cancer.
Perot could get no help from the U.S. government to rescue his 2 employees imprisoned when the Ayatollah Khomeini seized control of Iran. So he called on his old friend, retired Green Beret Colonel Bull Simons, and he asked him to lead a private rescue mission.
He said, "I'll do it."
Colonel Simons picked 12 EDS employees, volunteers, and former military all, and he sneaked them and Perot into Tehran.
In a fortress-like prison with 10,000 prisoners, and he staged the largest jailbreak in history. Everybody got out so that our 2 men could go out.
December 1969, the Vietnam War going badly. Perot launched a mission to take Christmas presents to American POWs being tortured in prison camps.
The finest Christmas present these children could receive would be to know the status of their fathers, some of whom have been missing for nearly 5 years.
The North Vietnamese wouldn't let Perot in, but his mission to improve the treatment of U.S. POWs was far from a failure.
And day after day after day, they sat in solitary confinement.
One thing the communists don't like is bad PR. And he was getting them a whole lot of that. And so, as a direct result of that, our treatment changed.
And And 2 years later, American POWs started coming home.
Ross Perot is a patriot.
That's Admiral Vern Clark, Chief of Naval Operations at the Pentagon. He told the crowd at the Eisenhower Awards last year he gets a lot of calls from Perot, who still comes to the rescue of those who serve this country.
This is the ensign who was on this large ship, and an enlisted man got his legs entangled in the rope.
The halls of Perot Systems headquarters are lined with the stories of help given to injured military personnel and their families over the past 30 years.
People don't have the stomach to fix these problems. I think it's a good time to face it in November.
In 1992 and again in 96, he offered that brand of leadership to the country at large, running for president.
I wanted to get over to the American people the financial condition of our country.
They will have heard the harsh reality of what we have to do. I'm not playing Lawrence Welk music tonight.
The voters, as you know, went another way. But Perot hasn't skipped a beat. At 74, he's too busy expanding his company and answering those daily calls for help.
Perhaps the greatest compliment I could pay to him is us saying, I'd go to war with him, and I'd follow him into battle.
And God bless you, Ross Perot, and your family.